Good evening.
How are you? You have a chance to look at your homework?
You mean the one you sent today?
Yes, it was intentional.
To get this morning?
Yes.
I looked at it. I sent it in to Miguel. I finished it as best I could.
Okay, hold on. Let me see if he sent it. I think he sent it to me. Yeah, I didn't want too long. I just wanted to see if you could read, like, whether or not you understood what we did. Hold on now. Let me see.
Well, we were supposed to send it to him?
If you finish it in time, if you didn't, I'll wait to hear what you have to say.
Okay.
Good night. Good night. I have ravens.
Oh.
No, that's just okay. No, not that. No, that's not it. I'm looking. Hold on. Let me see what Miguel. See if he labeled these right. Isn't Miguel on?
Yes, I'm here. Hiding someplace.
Did you send me? Oh, I see it. I see it, Katina.
Yeah, I think one or two persons sent me the email, the homework, so I forwarded it to you.
I saw Katina's. Let me see what Katina says.
Well, I can't remember how many, but one or two.
One. Only Katina one said she sent it in.
Well, let me dig through my emails so I don't miss nobody there.
Yes. So Katina.
That's why you're missing emails to send out to people on time. Anyway, let me mute that.
Nikita, you know, he just called you his cross, so don't get him cross tonight.
Anyway, because I already expressed how I feel them for the evening. I don't know what that was this morning.
Oh, Lord. Don't do him like that.
No.
Don't do him so. Give him a little chance. Okay, let me read yours. Katina while the rest put their thoughts together. Okay, let's see.
No, I ain't seen nobody else send me anything.
Okay, all right, okay. Don't worry, I'm gonna go around the room to see how they will approach the question. Let me just finish reading Katina on while they put their thoughts together. Let's see. Who breathing hard? Sound like Makita.
We were supposed to send it in. I just was trying to do something because I just get off.
No, that's fine. That's fine. You weren't required to send it in, but if you'd finish it in time, you could send it in. But we're going to discuss it.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We got an assignment?
Of course.
I didn't receive anything.
What? Where's Miguel?
I didn't receive it.
I'm ready.
Shaquille.
Who didn't get it?
Shaquille.
That was the assignment that
What's the email, Shaquille?
ShaquilleCurtis@hotmail.com.
Let me see what you have on this list.
Only one person I was supposed to take off. That was Danielle. Shaquille, I got Shaquille Curtis at Hotmail. Right?
Yes, sir. I checked my spam. It isn't there either.
Check again, Miguel.
Let me see what let's say.
ShaquilleCurtis@hotmail.com. That's what I have.
Yes, ma'am.
So how come you didn't get
that
it?
was in a group? Yeah, I have that in a group. I have that in all your groups.
Oh, I know.
How come she don't have it?
Yeah, I spell it wrong. Kids study homework. Complete not.
Send it over now, Miguel.
Yeah, looking for company law.
You know what I mean?
Who's that?
So I have a question.
Go ahead.
Oh, hold on, let me go back to this question. Okay, so your question is, oh Lord, hold on, I lost it. The first one, it says, explain by reference to statutory and common law examples what is meant by the term lifting the veil.
Of incorporation, yes.
So you wanted 2 examples in 2 cases?
Yes.
Oh,
Or
okay.
what?
Okay.
We did many cases last week. And remember, I told you all to send them into Miguel.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Let me see. I need to put a space here. Because you put the second answer right up into the first answer. Okay, Katina.
Yes, ma'am.
Your second answer is too brief.
Okay.
Yeah, it's too brief. Okay, I'll wait for everybody else. Let me see what they wrote. These are 2 examples of questions that can come on the exam. Not saying that these ones are coming until I write it, but just so you get an idea.
Oh, I really can read this email.
What is wrong with you?
I got to be prepared.
I sent it in that short time, just as if you were doing an exam, just to see how you would approach the question.
Okay.
You don't have to write it in full, but you can tell me what points you were going to put down. So I can steer you as to how you have to think.
All right, I still waiting to get the email.
What you mean?
I still don't have it. Miguel, you sent it to me?
Where's Miguel? Miguel.
Sorry, right here, Shaquille, I just sent. Use my Gmail account.
Okay, I will refresh again.
Okay, see if you see it.
Yeah, I sent it.
Okay, thank you.
You got
have
it?
it?
I can let you know once I receive it. Still waiting.
Okay.
Archer,
Yes.
that's exactly how I answered the question, as if I didn't have enough time to think. So
That's fine.
I'm going to send it to you, and I definitely would like your guidance. So
Okay.
I'm going to send it to Miguel. I don't have an email on my Miguel.
My email is not on the trail.
On the
you sure?
On the trail. Let me see.
Yes, it should say CM Archer _UWI at Yahoo. It should be there on one of those trails.
Excuse me. How long should this essay answer be?
Meaning typewritten?
If you're handwriting or if typewritten?
If you're handwriting, it'd probably be about a page and 3/4, because you're going to add the cases then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this something to be written up now and sent to you. We're not discussing.
We're going to discuss it, but like she was saying, you'd probably want to write it out.
Can I write it out afterwards?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Okay.
Let me mute. I become a teacher.
What? No, speak.
I think mine's too brief.
I automatically presume that this is a sort of like a test to answer an essay, like an essay type question. So you could see our writing styles, whether we would be putting the pertinent information.
Correct.
Satisfactory enough to pass the question.
Correct.
Okay. I'm smart sometimes.
I could probably discuss, but I have to write it out afterwards because I can't like write it out now.
No, that's right. If you can't write it down, we're going to discuss it. So let me just, let Shaquille get a time to read it and see how she would put her thoughts together.
Not a shame.
You have it?
I don't send it after you all say essay. I think mine is a bit too brief, but you know what? It's trial and error right now. So let me send it.
Yeah. This is the first one. Don't stress.
Let me know. Okay.
No time to stress yet. Okay, let me see.
So I'll just do it over, but that's literally, as soon as I got it, I just answered it. I didn't.
No, that's fine. You don't have to give all of that explanation. That's fine.
Cool.
So y'all let me know when you're ready.
So Ms. Archer, like in you said the second question I didn't elaborate enough. So like with the first one, when I was talking about the perpetual succession, so I think it's called McCall with the wife, with the what's his name? With the flight, with the when he died as a crop duster.
Lee. That was Lee. Lee Farming.
Yeah, Lee Farming, right. So I would have to just cite that as well there.
Yes.
Okay, I understand now. Thank you.
Yeah, the cases require, these answers require you to have cases.
Okay, I got it, Miss Arch. I'm going to answer it right now. I can respond to this email, or I need to...
No, you could just write your notes down.
Okay.
And then you could write it out sometime tonight if you want to, or on the weekend, and send it to me.
Oh, okay, okay. So I don't have time. I don't have to send it now.
No, But we're going to discuss it now before we begin the next chapter.
Okay, that works. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, okie dokie. Who wants to start? Where did I put my question now? Somewhere around here. Right here. Let's start with Cameron. You're quiet tonight. Let's start with you. How would you approach this question? What would you say?
Which one? Question one?
Yeah, question one.
For that one, I would first differentiate between common law and statute law.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing I would do. And then I would explain the term lifting the veil of incorporation. So what I have in my notes, what I have written down, like I said, I would differentiate between common law and statute law. So I would say, and statutory law, sorry.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
And I'd say statutory and common law play a vital role within the legal system. Common law is the main body of law which has been developed over many years. Statute law, meanwhile, is a body of law which has been passed by legislature. It also been certified for use. And then I would explain the meaning of corporate veil. The expression lifting or piercing of corporate veil refers to the court which looks behind the separate legal personality of a company. The court will look behind the corporate entity when assigning a corporate right, privilege, duty, or liability to a member of the company. And then I would refer to a case. In this instance, I'd refer to the case of Solomon versus Solomon. And Solomon
where you putting that case?
After I explain what's the term corporate veil, referring lifting or piercing the corporate veil, after explaining that what that phrase means, and I give an example of a case.
Okay.
That's fine?
No, it ain't fine. I'll give comments later. Lisa,
okay.
What did you write? Lisa, what did you write?
I'm sorry, I didn't do this. I didn't do the assignment. I just
didn't do it
earlier today.
Okay, Linda.
But I could add following Karen.
Okay.
I would use Solomon there. I would use Solomon to give an example of a separate legal entity in my introduction.
Okay, right. So that's the first thing, Cameron. You have to speak about Solomon versus Solomon at the very beginning. Because remember, that's the case that established the separate legal entity.
All right, understood.
Okay. Go ahead now. What else are you going to say? Lisa, what else are you going to say? What else are you going to add?
Then I would go into the cases on piercing the corporate veil and why the court decided to pierce the veil.
Mm-hmm.
And
go ahead.
Right. Because statute says a company is a separate legal entity, and then common law says you can pierce the corporate veil in certain instances.
Okay.
I don't remember those instances, but that's all I got.
Okay. All right. Makita, what you have?
What I have from last week is what the person just went before me said, because I made a note where you said the first principle is to set out the principle of Solomon versus Solomon and then go into your case.
Mm-hmm. So
that would be set out first. And the cases, what I would have given would be the Jones and Liffman, the Guilford and Horn, and then the press case, press and Petrodale.
Okay. All right, let me hear somebody else.
Hi. What I first did was said what was established in Solomon versus Solomon.
Mm-hmm.
Then I started to discuss that there are circumstances where the court will lift the corporate veil to reach the beneficial owners, and what those types of instances are. And I talked about, I talk about the provisions for lifting the corporate veil, the judicial provisions and the statutory provisions. And under the judicial provisions, I spoke about, where's the case? Guilford Motor Company versus Horn.
Uh-huh.
And I also talked about the FG Films Limited case.
Mm-hmm.
And then I gave examples of the statutory provisions that would be used to pierce the veil. But the only thing I couldn't find like an actual legal thing, like law, but I said in the eyes of the law, the holding company and its subsidiaries are separate legal entities.
Okay.
That was basically it.
Okay, so the question says, explain by reference to statutory and common law examples what is meant by the term lifting the veil of incorporation. A lot of you will write by saying, to start with, you would speak of what is a company. And by doing that, you're going to first settle the case of Solomon versus Solomon. And then you're going to state, because you're talking about lifting the veil of incorporation, you have to start by saying, from the Solomon case, what the judge said. The judge said that once the company is incorporated according to the Companies Act, which means that the memo and odds have been filed, all fees have been paid. It is a separate legal entity. That's the statutory side of it. That's in law. Now, when you speak about lifting the veil, you have to begin by giving an introduction, by saying that there have been instances where the courts have lifted the veil of incorporation based on, and then you have to give the reasons why they pierced or lifted the corporate veil. So that's why I told you all to get the cases and share them amongst each other. Because then once you get the cases, you begin to see that there is a commonality between certain cases. And you'll see when you read the cases and put them together, you'll see that some cases overruled other cases. So remember, the first reason why a court would lift the corporate veil was when it's wartime. You remember the case that was read, speaking about the war?
You can repeat that. You said the first case.
It's wartime, in wartime.
Wartime.
Yeah, WARTIME. Remember the case when we went through the cases? And we spoke about the company where it was controlled by an enemy in Germany? Yeah. Okay, so that's one instance was wartime. The second one was agency. And for agency was the case you mentioned already, FG Films.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, I just making sure I get hear me. I didn't know. I was trying to do it for a little while.
You said the case that we read, that we said earlier with what?
FG Films Limited.
Oh.
That was agency. But critics have said that case is doubtful. The third instance where they would actually lift the veil is fraud. And the case for that is Jones versus Lipman.
Oh, Lord.
And if you want to add another case, you could add the case of Trustor, TRUSTOR, AB versus Smallbone. It's on your listing. The next instance they pierce the corporate veil is when the judge feels it's in the interest of justice. And remember, we did the case of ORD versus Belhaven. And another case you could use is also on your list is Conway versus Ratiu, RATIU. Then, like someone mentioned, the only person who mentioned it, you have to speak of group of companies. In a group of companies, we did quite a few cases. We did Adams versus Cape. There's DHN Food versus Tower. You could add in there the case of Wolfson versus Strathclyde. And you could end by the case that Marquita spoke of, Press versus Petrodel, where the court argued using most of these cases we referred to. That's why I said to read it. the argument that once you set up a company, if you keep finding reasons to pierce the corporate veil or pierce the company itself, what's the purpose of having a company? You must find another avenue in order to get a remedy for what the plaintiff is seeking. So in Press versus Petrodel, the critics say that what the only thing the court said was they lifted the veil just to do justice. So even with the group of companies, Adam versus Kate, it's being said that it was only lifted to do justice. So in each instance, for each one of the examples, you don't have to put 2 or 3 cases for each one. And remember, if you don't remember the name, that's not important. If you remember the facts. And the facts can really be 2 sentences. So you start off by saying in statute, what is a company? Under the Companies Act or under the IBC Act. And then you speak about the common law principles in Solomon versus Solomon. And then you give an introduction by saying when the court has lifted or pierced the corporate veil, and then you demonstrate how it has been done chronologically through the years, listing the cases for each one of the examples that you set out.
All right, on the first piece, when you said, what is the company, you said something after that with the acts, one of the acts.
Either, you can refer either to the Companies Act or the IBC Act. Remember, you're gonna refer to the sections that speak to, in order for you to have a company, you must have filed your memo and arts, and then you get your certificate of incorporation from the registrar. That statutorily, that would make you a company. Under the IBC Act, it'll be the same thing, but you also must have a registered agent and a registered office. And so when you explain the case of Solomon versus Solomon, you're going to emphasize that a company is a separate legal entity, has perpetual succession. It can sue and be sued. Because what you want to do is you want to be able to demonstrate the structure of a company and then how the court goes behind that structure in order to grant a remedy to a plaintiff or not. So that's why we went through the cases. So you could then now sit down yourself with the cases, go through them, analyze them, and put them in order. Any questions? Everybody's quiet.
I guess, just Linda, sorry. So what I sent you, I could just basically expand on more cases then.
Yes, yes. And make sure when you select your cases under each one, select cases that you can remember the story.
Okay.
Because there's more than one example. So try not to pick a case that you cannot remember.
Okay. Okay.
And don't get scared because you'll notice every chapter does not involve cases. As you see as we go on, all of them do not involve cases.
And when is it due? When do you want to send it emailed to you back?
Oh, anytime you're ready.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, anytime.
Okay.
You don't want it to take too long now.
No.
Because you're gonna have to get prepared for the final exam. So you'd want to know whether or not you wrote it right, whether or not your analysis of your cases that you're using are correct.
Okay.
So don't wait too long.
Okay.
Because no matter how you look at it, lifting the veil of incorporation will be on the exam.
Okay.
You see what I mean? It may not be
Yes.
this question, or it may be this question, but you have to have an idea of how to approach it.
Okay. Understood.
Ms. Archer, would you prefer for us to send these to you directly or send them to Miguel?
No, you can send it to me.
Okay.
Okay. Tell me when you're ready to look at question 2. And let me hear how you would approach question 2.
Ms. Archer, how I did question 2 was, I bullet point advantages of incorporating a company, but I'm assuming that it says 2 outstanding advantages. So I would assume that with each advantage, you would want an explanation on a case to reference that explanation.
Yes, okay. You're correct. Mm-hmm. So what advantages? I see, I'm reading Katina's. She has first advantage is that a company has perpetual succession. Katina, when you write, don't put in my opinion.
Okay.
It is already founded in law that it has a perpetual succession. So you don't have to say in my opinion.
Okay.
Okay, and your second advantage is a company can own property by itself and not by its members, sue or be sued in its own name and contract on its own behalf. It has a personality like a person, but limits the liability of its members once no act is performed fraudulently. Okay, so those are her 2 advantages. Who else had advantages? Let me hear your 2.
I put the limited liability.
Mm-hmm.
And the separate legal status. But that'd be basically the same thing?
Yeah, yeah.
So it'd be more, so if I said limited liability, it'd be better to say the separation of the ownership and management?
Ownership of property. Ownership of property.
Ownership of property? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? What 2 advantages you have?
I had limited liability and perpetual.
Yeah, I have enhanced.
Enhance what?
Okay, I have protecting. I have enhanced your business credibility. And then I have stash, easy to sell, because I think like those are the 2, like the same thing. And then I have protecting your personal assets.
Okay, so the last one is liability of the members. That's what that means.
Oh, so
that's what that means.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the way you word it.
All right.
And the first one, if I gather what
liability
you're trying
of
to
members.
say, yeah. The first one, if I gather what you're trying to say, is one of the advantages is a company can obtain financing.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what you meant?
But and I was
that's your 2 advantages.
And like, but when you're selling, like, say you go to sell your company, buyers more so look at you because they feel as though you're more stable than sold. Partnerships or proprietorship. I can't really pronounce that word. Y'all don't judge me. I speak right. You're fumbling with that word.
That's all right.
Proprietorship. Yeah, that's
you could say trader.
So trader, yeah, okay. So they look more so at you because you're incorporated. That's why I say enhance your your business credibility or easier to sell.
Okay, so all of that.
I don't know if I'm saying it correct.
Right.
Yeah.
But all of that sums up to one thing, that you have perpetual succession. That's what that's what makes it attractive.
That's the word. Okay.
Perpetual succession.
Succession.
Anybody had anything else?
So the main advantage would be that the perpetual succession.
Yes.
Because whether someone dies, or comes out, the business can still go
whatever.
on.
It goes on. Yeah.
Okay.
And the second one is liability of the members. Remember, that's why you form a company, because your liability is limited to the amount of your shareholding. So the second one is liability of the members.
Yeah, that's my favorite one.
And the third one is contractual liability. Remember it says that all contracts have to be in the name of the company. They cannot be in the name of the shareholder. The shareholder cannot enforce a contract. The fourth one is ownership of property is vested in the company, not in the shareholders. So the shareholders could come and change, transfer, whatever they want to do, but those assets remain the assets of the company, not the shareholders. And the fifth one is the company can obtain financing. And they could use the assets of the company as security.
You say they can obtain financing?
Yes, they can. Because don't forget now, the assets belong to the company. So when they say they can obtain financing, it means that the company can pledge its assets as security for a loan.
They help them out like with medical or other stuff?
Say that again?
Or personally, like for them personally?
No. Don't forget now. The assets of the company, belong to the company. So once you form a company can get a loan using the assets as security.
Okay.
So you see a lot of businesses, say like a food store, a furniture place, what other kind of business we have? Wholesale place. What they do is they would actually have, they'll do a charge over their inventory in order to borrow money. So they will go to the bank and say, I need a loan to operate my business for the next 3 to 6 months, and you hold my inventory. If they don't pay, the inventory that's in that business as at that point in time is what you use the word crystallize, which means that the company now has to say the assets that I have on my books is valued at X dollars. And the bank then says, you owe me this. And so the bank is able to take the assets. That don't mean physically taking all of the meat and the stuff in the store. It means they have to find someone to buy it, or the company has to go and find someone else who will lend them money.
Okay, so Ms. Fox, I have a question related to, similar to, right there in the bottom.
Go ahead.
If you're an employee, right, you're working for a company for just 7+ years, they only pay you for 7. The company closes and they wanted to give you a certain amount, but you were entitled to more. And so you took them to court. The company closes and you won the case in court, but yet now the company is dissolved and you have not gotten your pay from leaving the company. You would have to pierce the corporate veil in order to go after the individual owners, because they all own separate businesses. It's just that they formed that business for that purpose, and 2 years later they dissolved the business.
But the point is this: when would that have employee filed their suit?
As soon as she was fired.
Okay, and the company was still.
It was in the process of being dissolved at that time. She just didn't want to take the settlement they were giving her because she was entitled to more, and that's why she took them to court and she won. But
at that point of time, when she put her matter in court, they were aware that there was a claim against the assets.
Yes.
Okay, so then they have to pay.
So why would the attorney or the lady tell her that she would be responsible to find where they keep their money? Like,
no, why? No. What happened in the case of Ord versus Belhaven? Where they had a claim against the employer, and the employer then, as a matter of doing their own business, closed that company, created a new one, and they claimed against that new company because the debt was already registered. They were well aware that they had a claim. So why she needs to go now and find out where the money was? Whoever was that liquidator should have been aware that there was an existing claim against the company.
I'll speak to you on the matter then, privately.
Okay.
Attorneys being lazy.
I agree.
Yes. No, but I mean, whoever was
been going on for a long time.
Yeah, but whoever was the liquidator supposed to have been aware that there was a claim made by this employee and put a provision inside for it.
And she should have been paid by the liquidator.
Yes.
The only thing she was given was an account, old account. The only one they had left at the time for the company was a payroll account. And out of the payroll account, they just pay salaries out of it. So the remnants of the account, that's what she got, and that's it, nothing else. And it was less than $1,000.
Oh, no.
She has a judgment though. She should enforce a judgment against the new company and the shareholders.
Well, they didn't form a new company. They all had their own respective companies, and they came together and formed another company. And after two and a half years, maybe, it was unsuccessful, and they decided to dissolve the company. But she was grandfathered in from one of the partners before he merged into the larger company.
So they made a position redundant.
No, they carried it over. She was grandfathered. They never laid off because she would have been paid off.
But she was made redundant by the other company because that company no longer existed. That position no longer existed.
Right.
So they still owe.
The new company, you mean?
The old company owes her.
Okay.
Yeah, it is the old company that owes her. But I'm saying is that when they liquidated the old company, she had a liability.
Exactly.
The company had a liability. And whoever liquidated the company had to be aware that that was an outstanding amount or put a provision in there.
Against them.
Right. So whether or not we see, the thing about it is, right, the lawyer for the company should say, okay, we have a claim here. Right. Looking at the matter, we think this could range anywhere between $2,000 to $5,000. We will provision $5,000 for it. So how in the world could you liquidate a whole company knowing that you have a claim out there? They knew. And they should not allow that to happen. Now they have the woman running around trying to find out where the money is. What do you mean where the money is? It was liquidated, so they paid off all the debts except her.
Yeah, it's 2016.
Allowed.
There's 3 of them that haven't been paid off, but she was the only one who took them to court. That was from 2016.
Yeah, well, the 3 of them need to take them to court now. So that now the court will then go and pierce the corporate veil behind the crooks. They need to pay. And guess what? Under what arm would they pierce the corporate veil?
Justice.
In the interest of justice.
In
the interest of justice. Because it's not fair.
It really isn't.
Yeah, it's not fair. So the second question is just as if I had asked you a question about what are the advantages and disadvantages of forming a company versus remaining as a sole proprietor or trader. The difference is you'll have to add the disadvantages. So it's a similar type question. So any questions on this one?
Can you repeat what you just said?
I said that this question would be similar. I could take this question and write it a different way. I can ask you to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of incorporating a company versus remaining as a sole proprietor / trader.
Okay, okay.
Yes, it's the same thing. Only just in this one, I've just singled out just the advantages and asked you to explain it.
All right, and then this one, you would require a page-long answer as well?
Yes, because after you've given your advantages, we just did the advantages, remember? I gave you 5 advantages, but the question asks you now, give reasons for your choice and explain their dependence upon this fundamental attribute. And the fundamental attribute is that once you form a company, it is a separate legal entity. And so they ask you to take your advantage and say why it is so important to this separate legal entity. Why is the forming of a company creating a separate legal entity? Why is perpetual succession so important to it? Why is the liability of the members so important in forming a company? So always remember that when you answer the question, the first one asks you for the advantages. So let's just say you just gave the advantages. If this question was out of 20, right? You would have probably gotten 7. You see how many points you've already lost? Then it says give reasons for your choice. So the reasons for your choice could be another 7 points. And then it asks you to explain their dependence. Why are these 2 advantages so critical to that having that corporate personality, that independence, that separate legal entity? And that's the balance for your 20 points.
So would you have to cite cases in this as well?
Yeah, because you can't answer this without speaking about Solomon again.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah. Everybody happy now?
And there's only 2 questions. How long this exam is?
3 hours.
These 2 questions alone will be how?
No, it is not. If you prepare.
Ms. Archer, what did you say about the fundamental
attribute?
Yeah,
the fundamental
dependence.
The fundamental attribute of corporate personality is that it is a separate legal entity.
No, yeah, I mean part 2 of the question, you said and explain their dependence upon this fundamental attribute. How do you?
So the question now is based on the 2 advantages you stated. Why is perpetual succession so important to being a separate legal entity? Why is that important? Why you think that's one of the main advantages of forming a company?
Okay. You could repeat that again?
It's asking you why, based on whatever 2 advantages that you give. Let's say we say it is perpetual succession. The question is now asking you to explain why is perpetual succession important to a company having a separate legal entity? Why is that important to them?
Company doesn't die.
Remember now, keep in your mind that whenever you form a company, it is a company versus another type of entity. So remember I said you could answer this question even if I turn it the other way around and ask you to compare advantages and disadvantages of a company versus a sole proprietorship. So this is asking you, if you form a company, you're saying that perpetual succession is important. Why? Why is having a separate legal entity? Why is it important for it to have perpetual succession? And we went through that already, because it doesn't matter whether or not a person dies, retires, sells their shares. The company, as long as it has paid all of its fees and abided by all of its statutory requirements, the company goes on and on and on.
Right.
Those two are giveaway questions, no matter how I write it. Agreed?
I could agree after the exam.
Agreed, but there is a question. So that's letting you know. So let's go to chapter 3, which is very easy. Unit 3 then.
I don't be. Okay.
What? Didn't we do unit 2?
Oh, was okay.
Did we not do unit 2?
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay, so we're doing, right. Okay, so we're doing unit 3. So unit 3 is about money laundering, companies and money laundering. So let me ask you a question. Out of all of the different types of vehicles, in your personal opinion, do you think companies are incorporated in the majority circumstances to be used for illegal transactions?
In the majority?
Yeah.
No. That's
no. Okay, somebody else, do you think?
But do IBCs, do they pay taxes? They pay taxes, right?
What you mean?
But IBCs, any revenue that they don't, if whatever revenue they make, they don't, at least if it's IBC in the Bahamas, they wouldn't tax those funds, right? Okay.
No, I don't think that companies are. I don't think companies, for the most part, are incorporated to hide legal. I mean, we have to be concerned in some instances about money laundering, particularly because of the facade of drug running in the Bahamas. But I don't think, for the most part, companies are incorporated to hide criminal activity.
Okay, all right. So every year the United States prints a report. It's about 200 pages long. And it speaks about illicit trafficking. And the Bahamas is always prominently in that document for money laundering.
Yeah, because they come here to do it easy.
Drugs.
There's come here.
Drugs, gun smuggling, and human smuggling.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I have a question to that.
Go ahead.
Do you think that we are on that list as well because we don't publicize who actually owns the companies, if they are IBCs?
Yes.
But then that could be a matter where they're just targeting us for that, not necessarily that that's what's actually happening.
It's a combination of different things.
Okay.
Okay. When you, let's see how to do it. How the best way to explain this. Let's go through the law of money laundering, and then we're going to look at it from a holistic point of view, from being a small island nation versus big G10, G20 countries, and what we do as a business in the Bahamas, utilizing these IBCs and facilitating foreign clients to use these vehicles to transact their business. So everybody knows what money laundering is and that there are 3 stages, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Placement, layering, and integration. Everybody knows that. And you'd also know that for a crime, you don't have to have all the 3 stages. It could be in either one of the stages, it can be a crime. And so who could tell me why the Bahamas changed its money laundering laws in 2018?
Because there was a lot of layering.
Hmm?
I think because there was a lot of layering.
Okay, anybody else?
That ain't when POCA come out, eh?
Yeah, that's when POCA came out. That's what I said, the money laundering laws. Why were they changed? Why did they amend them? Why did they go through all of this process to change the laws?
It didn't have anything
because people was washing the money too much.
I think we were made to change it based on is it G7 stipulations, right?
Yes.
And not wanting to be blacklisted.
Okay. So what was the G7? Why did they want to put us on the list? Why was it important for us to change?
You weren't doing certain stuffing.
Yes, we weren't doing certain stuff. So when you spoke about money laundering from the first legislation in 2000, more or less was just the banks and the trust companies that were focusing on money laundering. When they came back to us in 2016, 2017, they said, but the country should have already done a national risk assessment, looking at all the various businesses and sectors that we have in the jurisdiction and identifying which ones are more susceptible to money laundering or terrorism or whatever crime there is. Why has the Bahamas not identified what are the predicate offenses under the Proceeds of Crime Act, which was not done? Why aren't all of these real estate companies and financing companies, why are they also not included in this regime to file STRs, to make it mandatory for training? Why hasn't the Bahamas filed STRs commensurate with the known fact that there is drug running, gun running, and human smuggling happening in the country? Why is it that the Bahamas has not sent people to jail? Why? Those were the questions. And if you were to arrest someone, why hasn't the law been changed whereby you are able to, I guess, to have on the books the right laws whereby it is mandatory for banks to provide the information and you are able to seize the assets of these criminals and actually criminalize all the persons who are affected. So the Bahamas had to change their laws, increase the amount of STRs. And as you can see in the papers, once you commit a predicate offense and you have taken that money, you have spent that money, then it falls under the Proceeds of Crime Act and is either termed money laundering or is termed terrorist financing. So under the Proceeds of Crime Act 2018, the Bahamas has identified what they call risk offenses. So any of these acts that you perform and then you are charged and found guilty, they all fall under the Proceeds of Crime Act. So that includes corruption, cybercrime, human trafficking, money laundering, financing or proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, terrorism or the financing of terrorism. And they can add to this list whenever they feel like. Any questions?
Why are we taking it? But I know why.
Why are we taking what? Why are we taking what? I mean, why are we doing it?
Yes.
Well, we really don't have a choice.
Exactly. That's why I said I know why.
We don't have a choice.
Right.
If we want to be able to do business, because we are a financial center, if we want to be able to do business through the G7 countries or the G20 countries, you have to abide by the rules. And you have to remember, historically, small islands have been used for people to hide their monies, historically. That's why they call them offshore centers. Offshore centers means that people who are on the mainland send their money to a little island, as we call it, offshore. We no longer use that word. We're just a financial center. So under the Act, it says concealing. A person commits an offense of money laundering if acting with knowledge or reasonable suspicion, conceal, disguise, convert, transfer, or remove the proceeds of crime from the Bahamas. So this doesn't relate to just the person who's doing it. There's anybody who assists them. It's a crime if you make arrangements concerning the proceeds of crime. So if someone is having a discussion on how they're going to move persons from here to Miami by boat, where they're going to stop, who's going to meet them, and you're a part of the conversation, you are a part of arranging to commit a crime. Any acquisition? Someone had a question?
Yeah, I was asking you about the mystery shoppers.
The mystery shoppers, you mean in stores?
No, they're saying that if you, they have an announcement that comes on the radio in the morning saying that if anybody has contacted you by email or by phone, asking you to receive funds or some money's going to be deposited into your account, and as a result, you will get a commission from it or something, that you would be charged as accessory to this money laundering or
yes. Uh-huh. Because that's how the law is written now. Once you are involved in whatever scam it is, then you become a party to the crime.
But more than that, who would be silly enough to allow someone to send them money that they don't know? I mean, for me, the whole point is I need to get your bank account number so I can get your details, so I can get your money.
But they give it.
But Ms. Archer, what I'm saying is I don't know of anyone who actually receives the money.
No, nobody receives it.
If anything, the scam is turned the other way around.
Money. The scam is to take money off. Yeah,
they take money off.
Yeah, see,
which is how I think a lot of this pirating has gone on in terms of Scotiabank and First Caribbean, where people can go ahead and spend money off your account without your knowledge.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that is why with technology now, once you activate it on your phone, if someone takes money out of your account, you get a notification.
Thank goodness for that now.
You need that.
Yes.
Because if you wait beyond the window that they have in order to state that a transaction was not authorized by yourself, it will be too late.
It's too late. You have to wait 90 days.
No, see, we was away. This was recently, right in December, we was away. We was in Pennsylvania. My sister, she knew how much money she had on her account. I think she had like $300. And she is budgeting this $300 so long. Then she going on her account again. And I think she had like $700, like $700 and something dollars. And she come telling me she have all kind of money on her account. She trying to figure out where this money come from. Then the next day, it was like $900, and then the next day was no money. Like no money, like none.
So
all the money gone. I don't know. I was supposed to ask. I didn't get the answer, but when she came back, she went to the bank and she found, I don't know, I didn't get the answer what went down. But I know she gone to the bank and she was trying to figure out what happened. How come this money was going on her account?
I'm sure they took their money.
Yeah, they put it on because she don't really use that account. She have like a couple cards. And that one, she don't really use. So I guess they was doing that for a long time until she gone away and she realized, Okay, there's used to start.
But, but it's not just foreigners doing this, you know. They're
that's us. That's Bemis who do that.
It's persons who work in the bank itself. I worked with someone who literally built a program years ago. He built a program. His family is very well known. They're part of the upper echelon of society. Built a program to remove a penny a day from each account at the bank where he worked. A penny a day. And no one misses a penny. You don't miss a penny a day. But over 10 years, if there were 100 clients, he built up quite a bit of money.
I hope he was caught.
He was caught, and that very upper crust family had to make repayment on his behalf. He can no longer to this day work in a financial institution, whether offshore or commercial.
My friend too, they had money deposited on their account, didn't know from where. So he went to the ATM. Like, let's just say he had $100 on it. All of a sudden he had 5. So he went and he withdrew the full 500. The next day, someone from the bank called him and said, oh, they deposited on his account mistakenly. I think they've been moving money around on accounts that hardly get used and then take them off. So he had to go back and, like, let's say give the money back. I mean, I don't know if that was legal or not.
Yeah, he has to give it back. He has to give it back. The only way he would not be able to give it back is if he could prove that he was expecting some funds in the amount of $400 or $500 and from home. Let's say
but I think it was placed on his account to hide.
I agree with you. So whenever you have an account or anybody has an account that's not being utilized, that is how they move money. Always remember that. If they notice you only come to the account once in the blue moon to make the deposit, they're going to use your account. That's how people steal. So a lot of these people you see now going before the courts, they move these things in a very stealthily way, whereby you'd never notice it. A little piece here, and little piece there, and little piece there, and little piece there. Take the other one where it was with UB, where the person who was in accounts was writing checks to people who were dead. I mean, no, but I mean, how serious?
I worked on that particular case, Miss Archer. Let's leave that one alone, please.
I've never heard of these things in my life. Anyhow, a body who acquire, use, and possession of proceeds of crime, it is an offense. So, like I always tell my students, especially the young ones, I said, you have a boyfriend, he's bringing you expensive gifts. You know he doesn't have the kind of job to afford it. You don't bother to ask the question, but you have suspicion. When he gets arrested, you will get arrested too. You really have to know who you're dealing with.
With the poor child innocent, man.
Okay, so let's take the poor one. Okay, so we'll use for an example, the poor girl, when her boyfriend was arrested for the fraudulent Securities Commission checks. You remember that, right?
No, I don't think I'm familiar with that one.
Oh, yes,
I very much remember that one.
Okay, then. Everybody remembers that one.
Mm-hmm.
What it was?
No.
Which one is
Securities Commission checks.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, I don't know that. Okay.
Yes, you do. It was in the papers with the pictures.
Now, I think that was one of the first times when they started putting people's pictures out when they did, because normally you just hear by reason of employment and, you know, that goes the way it goes. But now it's being publicized. They put the pictures in the paper.
Yeah. So they had the picture of the girlfriend, the perpetrator, and the perpetrator parent.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. I remember.
Then. Okay, then.
But don't put me in it. Suppose I don't know.
No, but like Ms. Archer said, you know, homie, don't have the kind of job to buy you an actual Gucci, not fake Gucci, an actual Gucci. I mean, nothing in Gucci costs less than $1,200. Handbag. He's coming home with stuff. You know he don't have that kind of job to buy you brand new. You're not gonna ask the question where it comes from. You just take the stuff. Come now.
You need to ask questions. So obviously, you know, she turned evidence and spilled the beans.
Yes.
Yes. But those are the
I
kind
don't
of
know
questions
about y'all,
you need
but
to ask.
when I was growing up, I could not bring home stuff to my parents' house. I had to say, even as a young woman working, I had to say where it came from, how much it cost, and where's the receipt.
Mm-hmm. You have to be very careful today. Very careful, Makita, because you could land yourself in jail.
Mm-mm-mm.
Well, I'm too scary, so I don't have to worry about all that.
Well, just remember when you're getting gifts, you better know where it came from.
I don't get gifts, so I ain't got to worry about that neither.
Hey, when you get a new car and you all excited, and you say, honey, you owe the bank on that? Oh, no. I save up for this just for you. Yeah, carry it back.
I ain't got to worry about that neither.
So there are 3 ancillary offenses under the Proceeds of Crime Act. One is failure to disclose. So whenever you have a suspicion, you have to disclose either to the FIU or to the police. The MLRO also has a duty to disclose, and failure to disclose is also a penalty. So when you take anybody who takes that position as an MLRO, they have to be knowledgeable enough and have the experience to know, based on whatever's presented before them, whether or not the incident raises a suspicion of money laundering.
What if they don't want to?
If they don't want to, they have to document it in their file and say why.
Okay.
They have to document it, because if it comes up again, you're gonna have to pull that, and has to be documented there why you didn't do it.
It's the MLRO that files the STR?
Yes. And remember, in any organization, you don't have to go through your supervisor. You can go straight to the MLRO.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's say if it's a client who comes in, they're very buddy-buddy with the supervisor or the manager, and you suspect something, you don't have to go to that manager or supervisor. You go straight to the MLRO.
Okay, so suppose something happening and the MLRO reports something, let's say reporting something on the company. Let's say, they call a whistleblower.
Yeah, but I won't go to the FIU.
Why?
It depends on what it is. You probably take it to the police. Don't forget that the FIU is for you filing an STR based on a suspicion of one of the predicate crimes.
But the FIU can't even arrest nobody anyway. They can't
even. No, so you go to the police.
They can't even.
Because even when you send an STR to the FIU, they do their assessments. And if they make a determination that there's a case to be answered, it goes to the police. The police has a very special unit that deals with STRs.
I just want to ask, are they
very special? Yeah.
They do. They have a fraud unit, and it was up until last year headed up by the now Commissioner of Police, Paul Roll.
So they're educated in all aspects of.
They are. They actually went on a training course. I happen to know because Commissioner Paul Roll is one of my pastors. Went on a training into London for this particular thing, and they also did a training with Securities Commission and FIU. That particular division is quite knowledgeable. As a matter of fact, Ms. Archer, it was they who came into UB on that particular fraud case. And the young lady is still in jail, by the way.
Yeah, I remember she went to jail. Yes. And so this special, I call it a special branch of the police force. They have connections with all of the police academies all over the world.
They have a specific name?
Oh, I mean, so I can remember what they call it. It's the Financial Crime Unit.
It is. You have it. Yeah. You have it. That's in Archer.
Yeah, Bahamas Financial Crime Unit.
Okay.
They have their own office outside of CDU. Okay. They're on Nassau Street or somewhere around it, but they have their own unit.
Yes, you're right.
They have their own unit. And they then take whatever the FIU brings to them, and they make a determination then whether to them it looks like a predicate offense has happened. And based on that, then they ask the entity for more information. And when I tell you more, I'm talking about more. They analyze numbers. They analyze where the money went, where it came from. And they actually have the connections all over the world to figure things out. So remember now, with all of this technology, the world has gotten very, very small. It's long when you're sitting on the plane, but when it comes to them doing their job, everything is at their fingertips. The next ancillary offense is always remember, it is a crime to advise someone that they're under investigation. You cannot tip off people. So after the Proceeds of Crime Act, you have what we call the customer due diligence. You must get a copy of their IDs. If it's a company, you have to know, you have to go back to where there's an actual person.
You have to get a warm body.
Yes, you need a warm body with blood flowing through it. That is required by law. And once it's just a regular person, you can do simplified due diligence, which means that the person is a low risk. You just need their passport or their voter's card, and then you get their address verification, their phone number, and that's it. But there are instances where you have to do enhanced due diligence. And enhanced due diligence means that the person carries more risk to your company. Which
that
means
could be based on where they're from too, right?
Where they're from, the nature of the business that they're in. Because don't forget, now you're looking at money laundering. So if they're in a cash business, that's enhanced due diligence. If they're in a connection with 3 or 4 or 5 different people, each one of them are in different businesses, you need to do enhanced due diligence to make sure that all of these persons are not involved in anything that leads towards a predicate offense.
The PEPs as well.
And then as PEPs is the next one. Mm-hmm. Politically exposed persons. All those who are involved in, what they call it, government officials, public officials, embassies, all of those people. Any
political affiliation or consultancy.
Yes. And any government or administrative person who has access to funds are also a part of that politically exposed person. And that includes your spouse, your siblings, and any what they call close associates. So you see sometimes what these PEPs do is they allow their close associates to establish accounts in their own name, and then they pass their funds through the close associates account. It's not passed to their personal account. So the close associate then opens an account on behalf of the PEP, and the transaction passes through that account. You didn't know that, hey?
I did.
Yep. That's the way of laundering money. If you get a little kickback somewhere, you would never pass it through your account. You use one of your close associates who would then deposit it on their account. And then when you need it, they will draw it off. So when you look at PEPs, you look at geography, you need to know where the money came from. You need to know where the money that they're bringing in now is coming from. You need to know why they need to open an account. And this means whether it is an individual or it's a company. You have to know what's the rationale for opening an account. And then the legislation also called for you to appoint an MLRO. And you're required to also train your employees. So by now, from 2018 to now, everybody should know what the new legislation says. Correct?
Hold on, who's required to train the employees?
The MLRO or the compliance
MLRO.
officer. Mm-hmm.
Or you could get someone external.
So I have a question.
Go ahead.
Like how CESRA out now, I don't know who really knows. I'm still mixed up about it, but a company should be required to train its employees on CESRA, correct?
Not necessarily.
No, not necessarily.
What if you're in that?
If you're in that area, if yes, your job now is to do the reporting, then the MLRO should have already given you an overview of what is CESRA, why it's required, and what the reporting is all about. Don't forget now, you have annual AML training, but an MLRO has another function. They have to train every department. They have that job. No, but when they train you, let's say they're training you on CESRA, they're not really going to train you how to upload. Their job is focused on two things: whether or not that new topic has money laundering or terrorist financing aspects to it, or whether or not it is a regulatory requirement. And in this instance, it is a regulatory requirement. So their presentation to you would only be on what is CESRA, why it is required, when you have to upload. That's it.
That should be trained.
Yes.
But there were a number of training sessions via Zoom by was it Inland Revenue and Mr. Stanley Coakley Wells, is that his name? Stephen Coakley Wells. There were a number of training sessions. Yeah, there were a number of training sessions that would have prepared, but I mean, for me, it was a you know, like a walkthrough. I think if you had to apply for TINs back in 2019, CESRA was only the next step. I don't know.
Okay, so let me ask Makita this question: Did your MLRO ensure that the person, whoever has to do the uploading, attended all of these sessions?
I cannot answer that.
But that's another key thing, because they have to ensure that all the training is done. They don't train like that, but they have to ensure from a regulatory standpoint that the person who's responsible for uploading obtains the required training to do so.
I'm happy you said that, Ms. Archer. I'm going back to work tomorrow to say, why did I have to take it upon myself to do this? Because our MLRO officer did not, in fact, has yet to say, you know, are you guys ready for CESRA? Have you, you know, filed? Are you up to date? We, the heads of departments, took it upon ourselves to make sure that we were in alignment with all of, you know, all of the filings.
See, a lot of MLROs, I'd put it like, try to say to get a good word. Okay, as an MLRO, unless you have a person who is hired to be a regulatory manager, you take on that role also. So under your cap as MLRO is just that function, that statutory function for the reporting. If you are the head of compliance and it's just you and an assistant, you have a dual role. One is for the money laundering side of it, and the other side of it is for regulatory compliance. It's a dual role. The MLRO, remember now, that's only for you to file STRs. That is not 90% of your job. You have a function to train, and annual training is just going over the laws. But you have a duty during the year to train specific departments. If there are changes in the law, to advise. If it impacts a certain function, you need to explain why, what is required to be done. And you also have to make sure that the training is obtained.
Interesting. I will certainly be bringing this up. I think in our case, because we have in-house legal, we get advised on changes where the law is concerned for us. So perhaps that's where there's a downfall, but I'm happy that you made that comment, because I'm going back tomorrow armed with this.
Yeah, because even though legal will say, okay, there was an amendment to the Companies Act, so here's a copy of it. The MLRO now has a function to say, okay, Unit B, Unit C, Unit D. This is how it impacts what you do. Risk, the policies or the procedures have to be changed to take into consideration the changes. It's full circle. Every time something changes, something is omitted, yes, legal can make it. If there's no legal, then it's the MLRO that makes the announcement, but the MLRO has another function. They have to go and make sure that the respective departments are aware how it impacts them and whether the policies and procedures need to be changed. And if it needs to be changed, then risk comes in. If there is no risk and that person takes a part of that job, then they have to do the drafting and suggest where the changes need to be made and send it to the respective person to have it done.
Okay.
So it says under the Act, Regulation 6, is that the financial institution should take appropriate measures from time to time to ensure that all relevant employees are trained and made aware of the procedures maintained by the institution in compliance with the duties imposed under these regulations. And so it's not just what's under the Financial Intelligence Transaction Regulation, but it's under all legislation.
So do you think like how you said, let's just say a new law comes into effect and an email is sent out here. See the act here, see the new law here, you know, and most laws set out is basically Chinese for people. Like,
yes,
you don't understand that. So do you think that there's a duty that they should actually break it down for persons to understand?
Yes. And for the department or departments that it impacts directly, they need then to sit down and have a lunch and learn, or what they call a grab by lunch. And you say, okay, the law has changed. These sections impact what you do. I've had a look at your policies and procedures, and you can tell me whether you agree or not. These things need to be changed.
Okay. I agree.
Okay. Right. So it says the financial institution must provide all relevant employees from time to time and at least once a year with appropriate training in the recognition and handling of transactions carried out by and on behalf of any person who is or appears to be engaged in money laundering. So say you have an attempted money laundering, or maybe an STR was filed. You take 1 or 2 cases and you have a lunch and learn. And you use those as an example with the relevant employees, seeing if those in that unit can identify what went wrong, why it happened. How can we stop it from happening again? Do we need to change our policies and procedures? Or was it that one person just didn't check or was not observant enough? So KYC is know your customer. And that means that your information you always have to use the information that you have on record in order to look at the client, look at the transactions, and see whether or not the risk has changed. So you notice now that a lot of the banks are trying to get to know their clients. So that's one of the key things of knowing your clients. When you go into a bank, you may say, okay, when I was working at Shoe Village. So now I have a job at FCIB as a teller. It is your duty to inform the bank.
Ms. Archer, I'm all for, I mean, my whole job is KYC. But can I tell you, when I go into the commercial banks now, I get frustrated. Why? I get frustrated. For me, if I'm a new client, I can understand them being so stringent. But I'm walking in and I'm the same client. I've been with you for more than 20 years. I'm performing the same transaction. You have all of my due diligence on file. And I have to prove each time, yes, I am the same Celicia Bethel. Yeah, it is most frustrating.
But why is that? Why you have to keep proving who you are?
I don't know. Scotia just hasn't. I don't know what. I have.
How come?
First of all, I have a problem with the long lines at Scotia.
Which one does this go to?
They're just slow.
So, all
Which
of
one you
them.
go to?
All of them are slow.
I am now at Cable Beach, but can I tell you, if you have to go into Palmdale, don't look at lunch hour.
Palmdale is a business branch. So is Wolf and Jerome.
Well, I am at Cable Beach now. And to go there for an hour is to laugh, because you're on the line outside for an hour. Then you go inside to a line. And then get up to the teller. And that's another story. Okay, so my latest frustration with Scotia, my daughter is at school in Canada. I'm sending her funds all through 2019, all through 2020. I've been sending her funds below $500 per month. And it's sitting on my bank account to the point where sometimes I don't even have to walk in with her account information. I simply say, listen, I just did this transaction on the 15th of last month. Just go back and follow through and send this amount of money. How is it now? I've been on the line for an hour and 15 minutes outside. It was not this week of cool weather. You get inside now, it's another 32 minutes on the line to get to the teller for him to say, oh, Miss Bethel, I'm sorry, I can't send this transaction. You need, hello? You need something late from the school.
You have to have the bill.
And so I said to him, I understand that, but understand, young man. I said, did Scotiabank send something out to its clients to say, by the way, if you're coming to perform transaction A, you need 1, 2, and 3? No, Scotia didn't send that. Scotia's normal clients have an alliance with the central bank, so the one central bank sends out new information. Because now I'm just so besotted with central bank, I understand or know what central bank has said to you. No, ma'am. So you mean to tell me I've been standing on that line? I've been in here for almost 2 hours to come up to the teller to find, you know that I just done this transaction last month. Can I have this transaction? My child needs to eat. And then when I come back, I bring the information that you need.
See, now, if they do that, that would be against company policy. Now,
what he asked you for, like,
and then the teller would get into problems for that as well. But it isn't only Scotia that does that.
Procedures. Yeah. But let me ask you another question, Celicia. Does your daughter have a Scotia account?
She does. She has a Scotia account, but of course, I mean, she took her card with her. So, no, she didn't take her card with her. I kept her card. So I actually have to wire transfer to her Scotia account in Canada.
No, you need to send her her card.
What?
Then all you do is transfer to her from home.
I understand this now, but what I'm saying to you is the layman does not receive information from central bank. Commercial bank, when you receive this information from central bank that your clients must now produce 1, 2, and 3. When is your client supposed to find out? After standing 2 hours on the line?
No, but don't they have a welcome person who goes around? They ask every person, what are you here for? They didn't do that on the line?
They did. And I said I was there for a wire transfer, and that person did not ask me, do you have a bill or do you have the acceptance letter from
They
school?
normally do. No, they normally do ask.
And can I tell you, I was most frustrated. Frustrated.
Every time you transfer money to your daughter?
I'm sorry?
Are you expected to produce these 3?
Now I'm expected to produce this every time I have to send. And I thought that ridiculous. Now, mind you, I understand. We're low on foreign currency. And so, of course, central bank don't want to send money out of the country. I understand that. But here was my frustration. I'm on the line for 2 hours. This is a transaction I only just did last month without having to produce this paper. Why have you not had a conversation with your client, sent out a flyer. Everybody's on social media now. Sent out something to your clients to say, by the way, clients, when you're coming in to do transaction A, you now need to bring with you 1, 2, and 3.
So he said that was a new procedure, or did the previous person just didn't take it?
No. Okay, let me clear it up for her. You remember every time the central bank said they're doing relaxation of exchange control?
Yes.
So every time they relax exchange control, they gave all the things that they used to do at the exchange control counter to the bank.
Right, okay.
So every time you go to do if you want to do a wire transfer, you need a bill. Just as if you had gone to exchange control, you now have to do it at the bank. And the way to get around that is for you to have your child have a same account where you just transfer it.
Transfer. Well, I mean, now I know. So she'll have to carry her card with her. But the problem will now come in when she comes home for the summer, when she's home on a break, and bills still have to be paid in Canada.
She pays them online. She
pays them online.
No, for instance, she has a credit card that can be paid online.
A credit card in Canada?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll have to be paid from a Canadian account, you see.
Right. Okay.
So monies will still have to be transferred.
Right. So what she has to do is she needs to learn, but both of you have to learn to plan. If she's gonna be gone for whatever X number of weeks.
You put that money on the account.
You have to make sure money's on the account before she leaves, and she could set up a standing order. It will automatically be paid.
Agreed.
Yeah, my son is in Canada. That's why I know so well. I don't have none of those problems.
Listen,
I paid all of his school fees just by transferring money to his account.
It was just too frustrating. I'm finding now, just going into the bank for just regular transactions become frustrating. And I'm thinking, am I a new client
what kind
here?
of transaction? What kind of transaction you doing?
Well, the money transfer was the one I'm thinking of recent. The last one was making payment on my credit card. I did it online, and for whatever reason, the monies just did not hit my credit. Oh, when you pay online, apparently there's a 2-day delay.
Yeah. All commercial banks have that.
And so that penalty hit, and that penalty charge hit.
Again, right. So again, is like everything is changing. Everything is electronic. So you need to record your dates when things are due, and you have to give the 2 to 3 days layover in order for it to hit your account.
Yes.
Royal Bank is the same way.
Well, nobody likes Royal Bank anymore.
Right. So what they're moving to now is a cashless society. So you now have to put your mind around that everything must be done electronically and within time. There's no human intervention now.
That cashless business was just not up for me. But I think what happened with me, let me tell you now, I have to confess. Confession is good for the soul. I had to say to the Mr. Teller man, I said, you know what? I'm not showing the grace of God in this moment, so I'm going to walk out of your bank. Because let me tell you, he got it from me that day. This transaction started downtown. Of course, Scotia changed their debit card. It's no longer the red card. You're getting the gray card, the MasterCard. And unfortunately for me, my account is downtown. So, and I work all the way almost life a key. So, you take the day off and you go downtown to get your card done. While you're there, thinking, okay, now's the time to transfer this money to my daughter's account, which is when I'm told, we don't accept cash. Okay, that's not a problem. I'll just go out to the teller. Do you have anybody who can assist me out to the ATM to make sure that the monies go on the account so that you can see it right away? No, we don't have anybody in-house right now to do that. I'm sorry, is your manager available? Oh, and by the way, Miss Bethel, the ATMs are down. Hello, what bank is this? You don't accept cash in. And your ATMs are down, and you do not have a customer service assistant to go out and
they wanted you to use your phone.
Listen here. So I said, not a problem. I have to go Cable Beach anyway to collect whatever. So I'll just do this transaction, Cable Beach. So, it's already, I've been on the line downtown for an hour to be told you can't do this transaction. And then I go to Cable Beach and that was another 2 hours. So I think by the time that young man got to me,
oh, Lord.
I had to say to him, darling, I'm not showing the grace of God in this moment. I'm going to walk out of your bank.
No, you have to get savvy now and use your phone and use your desktop.
Lord have mercy.
Because slowly by surely, all of those large branches will just become a little box.
So sad.
Yeah.
Well, at least I see today, I guess it wasn't already. They have they call them smart ATMs now.
Yes.
Where is this?
Yeah.
They have one Cable Beach, but it's only at the drive-through, not inside.
Cable Beach? So, I mean, Scotiabank?
Yeah, so when you deposit in money, it scans the money. You don't even need an envelope.
What is this? I have to go to the drive-through now just to see.
Yeah.
And it scans the checks and it'll show up to say how much it is.
Okay.
And then don't forget when you deposit a check, you can also get cash back.
No, they only allow you 500, eh?
It depends on the client.
I think a quarter of, yes.
Yeah, everybody has a different limit. And Royal does the same thing too. You get cash back.
Okay.
Who uses Royal anymore?
I was about to say that, Lisa. Not my favorite place.
Standing on Royal is worse than Scotia.
Woo.
Yeah, but don't forget now, both of them are asking you to use electronic devices. All of them.
I see this.
Right.
So Royal was our latest place of fraudulent activity by reason of employment, Miss Archer.
Yes. 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 And remember now, once you get the younger generation, they're more savvy. And so they try to find loopholes.
No, that wasn't a younger generation, Miss Archer. That was an older generation.
I know it was the older generation. I'm just saying the younger ones and the older ones all do the same thing. Everybody tries to get money. And so that's
finding loopholes in Island Lock. So
yeah, so it's the same thing.
Well, I mean, if you go in there now, remember Island Luck was born out of that loophole because there were only 2 back in the day, and these new companies that have come up in the last 5 to 10 years are the result of stealing from the original companies.
Yeah.
I'm done with that.
Yes. So I put in the notes the fine if you committed an offense. This is a term not exceeding 12 years, fine of 500,000, or both, or 20 years. And I said what's required when you file an STR. It is normally just stating either the name of the individual, where they live, what type of account they have, what are the balances on the account, and why you, as the MLRO, suspect that there is a predicate crime. So you have to be able to determine before you submit it to the FIU that there is a crime, and you have to state what that crime is. So it's the same thing if you have a company account. If you have a company account, you have to state the name of the company, who is the beneficial owner of the account, the warm body. You have to state who has a power of attorney, warm body, and then you have to state the names of the directors, and then you move on as to what actually is the transaction that has alarmed you to say there is a predicate offense going on. And so just like for the individual who opens an account, all of the directors, persons with signing authority, and the ultimate BO, you need to have their address verification and their passport or their certificate of identity. If it's a trust, you need to know who is the settlor and who are the beneficiaries. We'll do that when we get further down. But you need a copy of the passport of the settlor and the beneficiaries. And it depends if there is any company involved, because sometimes the trust will pay dividends to a company. Then you need to know who is the ultimate BO of that company and who has authority on that company. In this, go ahead.
So what if like, you know, sometimes the trust would have a trustee who is a regulated entity who holds in for a warm body. You still would have to go down to that.
Yeah, because you still need to know who is the ultimate beneficial owner.
Even though if the trustee is a regulated entity?
Yes, but they're not the ultimate beneficial owner.
Okay.
You have to know who is the ultimate BO. Now you have in this business that we do with all these formation of companies, an eligible introducer. So this is a company that introduces the client either to the bank or the law firm, or like we call them, they are in certain jurisdictions in Europe, they're called fiduciaries. And so they themselves have to do all of the KYC, all of the due diligence prior to introducing that client to a financial institution in the Bahamas, ensuring that that person is in good standing and that there are no criminal matters outstanding. And then they would introduce the client in accordance with the laws of the Bahamas. So the MLRO in the company has another duty, and that is to always ensure that whoever introduces clients to the company is aware of the laws of the Bahamas and any changes that would impact them introducing a client to the Bahamas. Then, of course, you know, you also have the service that we offer, which is providing a nominee shareholder. So instead of the name of the ultimate BO being on the return, there's the name of a nominee shareholder, which is in some cases a nominee trust company. So you see on the return a name of a nominee trust holder, and they're holding that in trust for the ultimate BO. And that's the service that's provided. But again, that licensed bank or trust company has to know who is the ultimate BO and obtain all of the information. So this is why you see this register beneficial ownership is coming out. The G7, the G20, the G10, they don't want, remember when they hacked the registrar's database? All right, so whatever information they got did not help them. Because the only thing they were able to see were nominee companies. They want to know who is the beneficial owner of these IBCs.
But more than that, Ms. Archer, you know, our registry is not up to date in any event. So where they should have seen directors and officers, because our filings, they were just blank.
So that's one of the reasons. I can tell you now, this is what it's our second or third year, eh? In filing for CRS.
Third year.
Yes, third year. So I remember when it first started, everybody was saying, well, it's probably going to take them a very long time to get through all of that documentation and start doing inquiries. But I can tell you that the foreign companies have already begun their inquiries. And they're going client by client from the listing. Client by client. They're coming through the AG's office and asking for information on the returns that we have sent to the various jurisdictions. They've already started. So you can imagine all of those countries we have on that listing. How many is it? 30 something?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so all of those countries now are gonna start coming back to the AG's office, to the financial institutions to confirm the balances on those accounts for those companies and those individual ones that we have reported.
I feel like all these filings, they need special, like they should be special projects, groups of people.
What you mean, in the organization?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, when all of these filings like CESRA, CRS, and FATCA, that is normally assigned to a compliance regulatory person. That is a specific function. That is not scattered all through the organization, you know. That is a person who is trained and skilled in what we call regulatory compliance. because with that reporting comes fines. And someone has to be responsible for ensuring that the company is not fined.
So, Ms. Asha, I have a question. If you assisted with this filing, unbeknownst to you, that there may be some penalty, and while you were doing this assisting, would you be liable?
Of course.
As a secretary?
But the fine going to the company, eh?
No, the company itself is fined. So in the case of in the case of CESRA, you find up to $150,000 per client.
And so what you think? What you think they're going to do with you?
Of course, the company won't keep you.
Of course.
Unfortunately for me, so I'm praying a Jehovah Nissi covering over everybody who's had anything to do with it.
Yes, it's a huge responsibility.
I'm telling you.
So you have the BO registry, you have CESRA, you have FATCA, you have CRS, and then in addition to that, if you are banking or financial under securities legislation, you also have other regulatory filings.
Yeah.
And if you are late,
it's like
you are fined.
A lot of them were due on the 31st, were just gone. So that was a lot of pressure.
There's some due on the 31st. There's some due April. There's some that's due in June. They have different periods. You have to write them all down. And most companies have a zero tolerance for penalties. And remember, depends on what it is. You could also have a flat penalty at the beginning, the first day, and afterward, then they give you portions. And it keeps running until you get it right. And someone has to answer for those penalties. Y'all gone silent now.
Ma'am, I think you just made the reality more harsh. So
reading entitled to severance.
reading on paper is one thing, but
yeah, there's a responsibility that goes with it.
Mm-hmm.
So now we know when we look at the G7 and G20 countries, you talk about companies itself, whether it's a company under the Companies Act or IBC Act, they always say we have shell companies here in the Bahamas. What do they mean?
Shell or shell?
Shell. SHELL. Here we call it in the legal field, they'll say we have shelf companies. SHELS.
Right. So these are companies that were incorporated for the sole purpose of purchase in I think for most part, most people who want to backdate the time a company was incorporated, they're just sitting waiting for purchase. They have a nice age to it, some of them, and for the most part, they have nominee. Shareholders aren't nominees, they're nominees. I think nominee directorship.
Yeah, they have nominee direct. Some have nominee shareholders in other jurisdictions.
Okay. A nominee directorship. So it's more of a case of hiding.
Now you're getting to the point. So this is what the G7, G10, G20 says. They still are these shell companies are private companies, and they in their definition is they use or they're formed to hide another company's asset. Because look at it structurally. They form one company in one jurisdiction, offshore jurisdiction. Then they form another one. So let's say they form one in Seychelles. Then they form one in Panama. They form one in the Bahamas. They may form one in Bermuda. So they have all of these companies they have formed on all of these various different islands. And in their mind, they say that the companies themselves are not illegal, and they're not expensive to incorporate, and they can be incorporated very quickly. And so in their minds, they say these companies, like the IBCs, are used as vehicles either to raise funds, to hold stocks or investments, or they act as limited liability trustees. And in their mind, they think that these companies, they have a degree of anonymity because you don't know who is the ultimate BO, hence the register. And they say they are used to hide illegal funds, evade sanctions, and avoid any AML measures so that you cannot detect suspicious financial activity. So in the gist, this is how they view IBC. That is why they are formed and the purpose why they're being used. And they say there are certain red flags you should look for when you see these IBCs being formed and used. They say one of the difficulties is very difficult to obtain information about the originators or the beneficiaries of transaction or transfers. Because normally when you have these IBCs, what's the normal paperwork you see going between the various companies? They write these contracts. One company is lending the other company. One company is paying back another company. Everything is the name of a company. And if you don't know, all of the companies are owned by the same BO. Mm-hmm. So just moving money from country to country to country. Then they say sometimes the company itself that you form, the activity is inconsistent with the business profile. Most times they operate these companies here, it's like we said at the beginning, they're for investments. They call it investments. But it says just the whole money. But really, the transactions when they start could be a very high volume. And then transactions begin to move in and out, in and out, in and out. It's not making any sense. Mm-hmm. The next red flag could be the payments don't have no clear or stated purpose. Or whatever transaction it is, it don't involve any particular goods. So you'll see you have a company who say they're buying bitumen out of China, or they're buying some steel rods out of China of a particular volume at a particular price. So you have a lot of these IBCs being used for transactions for intermediaries in various businesses to move goods and to move money. Then you have multiple high value transfers between different companies. So you'll see one company say, I'm lending money to my affiliate, $5 million to be paid over a 6-month period. And if you don't watch the accounts, you find out that the 6 months payback never happens. But $5 million has moved without you actually verifying where did the money go and what it was being used for. A next red flag could be you could have payments that are only identified by an invoice number. And sometimes these invoices are just a template where they just change the date. Sometimes the dates are wrong. Sometimes the prices on the quantities are the prices from the order that they sent the last time. And so you begin to see that's a red flag. Or you can have transactions being purchased and they don't match the profile of the company at all. Has nothing to do with the company. Would they normally say this is a one-off, and they ask for compliance blessing that they could just make this one-off payment. Or you could have transaction between 2 different companies with the same address and the same registered agent. Or you could have an IBC that's sending wire transfer to a lot of different beneficiaries. Or you could have transactions that involve beneficiaries in high-risk jurisdictions. Like they're sending money to Iran, Iraq.
What about Colombia. Paying like school fees from an IBC?
It depends on the purpose.
doesn't the purpose, let's just say the purpose of the company doesn't correlate with the purpose of the,
so that's a red flag. Either the BO is going to change the purpose of the account, or you can do an exception and make it a one-off. But you cannot have the purpose for an IBC to be for investments. If then you start paying school fees, you're paying for an invoice for some goods coming over there, you're paying for some furniture to put some, no. The account has to be operated for the purpose for which it was established. Other than that, it becomes a red flag. So the only way you could try to ensure that you're following the AML laws is you have to have customer due diligence. Always verify the entity of your clients and the persons who have power of attorney, or the directors who are making the decisions if you get in the board resolution. You have to monitor these transactions. And of course, you have to be aware when your client is moving money that is not related anywhere to a sanctioned country or sanctioned entities or sanctioned persons. And remember, sanctions is not just the United States. Other countries have sanctions similar to the United States because they're all United States based their sanction on the United States. All other countries base theirs on the United Nations resolutions. So if you're doing compliance, you'll notice that there have been a lot of emails coming from the Securities Commission as they're adding different persons to the list of terrorists and taking them off. And you have to scan your database to see if any of those persons are a client or whether or not payments are being made to those persons. You're aware of that, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, okay. Say that again, please. Say that again, please.
I said the Securities Commission have recently been sending out economic orders with the listing of persons as they are added or removed from the terrorist listing. And once you get that communication, if they say a certain person is added, you have to scan your database to see if that person is either a client or related to any of your clients.
Yes, yes, yes.
Right. And then so that's another regulatory reporting, confirming yes or no. You also have to make sure that your companies themselves, your IBCs, or your company, if it's a company, it's a company that is owned by a foreign national, or if you work in a commercial bank, you still have to make sure there's no adverse media against that company. You have to monitor it and to make sure that the company is doing what it is that they said they were going to do. And of course, you always have to know who are the controllers in the company.
Mm-hmm.
So they say internationally that the shell companies in the Bahamas and in other jurisdictions that on a widespread scale, they are used to camouflage the illegitimate laundering of money. And they use real businesses to perpetrate fraud and other financial crime than for drug offenses. So they do a lot of false invoicing, commingling of legal and illegal money, the use of loan back arrangements, and layers of transactions through various offshore shell companies. So after they've done that, then they would take the proceeds and they would invest it in a real company. And then they take that money and they buy real estate or another business. They tend now not to invest too much in investments. They prefer to go into real estate. Also, casinos and other businesses anything to do with gambling is closely associated with money laundering. As you can see, the Canadian banks have pushed back and they have stood their ground that they're not going to accept funds from the casinos. You know that, right?
No, I did not.
No, they do not accept funds from the gaming houses.
Once you win?
No, they do not take that.
You mean the gaming houses or the casinos?
No, the gaming houses, the ones that Bahamians go to.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they don't take their money.
No, they don't take their money. Because in Canada, casinos are seen as very high risk. So even though we have Bahama and we have Atlantis, the requirements for those casinos to a Canadian entity are very steep.
Mm.
They actually ask for KYC on the clients who gamble.
Interesting.
That's how deep this goes. But they will not take the funds from the local gaming houses. Even though the gaming board and all of the, what they call them, the gaming experts from around the world who set up the whole compliance regime at the gaming board actually did a training session and a demonstration and invited them to come and see how the technology works, the automation, how they can see what they are doing in gaming, how they can see who's playing, who's putting what money where it goes. They stood their ground and they said, we will not accept it.
Wow.
So it's known internationally that gaming is a threat for money laundering. And they find it very difficult to identify who is the customer.
Okay.
And who don't actually gamble.
Okay.
So what else I want to tell you about money laundering and companies? I'm trying to see right now what other notes I have. In some jurisdictions, there are other predicate offenses other than what we have in the Bahamas. The predicate offenses in the Bahamas are what? I told you all at the very beginning. That's that. Corruption, cybercrime. You remember? Corruption, cybercrime, human smuggling, money laundering, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Sound familiar?
Yes, financial terrorism.
You mean under the poor crimes under the POCO?
Yeah, Proceeds of Crime Act, yes.
Under the Proceeds of Crime Act, what we call identified risk. So you commit a fraud, then you take the money and you spend it. When you go before the court, you'll be charged for money laundering. But in other jurisdictions, they have other predicate offenses. So child pornography is one. That's a predicate offense in Asia. Breach of trust by a public officer is a predicate offense. Procuring juvenile prostitution is a predicate offense. Keeping a gaming or betting house, betting and pool setting and bookmaking, secret commissions.
Ma'am, do you have that in your notes anywhere?
No. These are other predicate offenses in other jurisdictions.
Okay.
I'm just letting you know that we can always go back and take those predicate offenses and expand it. Remember, not everything is based on what you see as custom and norm So as the Bahamas begin to move into other crimes, then it's going to expand. Because if it doesn't expand, then you're going to be right back again on the blacklist. Because you're going to be leaving out a whole populace, a whole set of crime that need to be included under the Proceeds of Crime Act. Any questions?
Ms. Archer, would this session and like the rest of the sessions be on the YouTube page?
Yes. Miguel is recording it.
Thanks.
Okay. There are lots of different red flags for IBCs. And it depends on the nature of the business that they're in. You could have someone who sets up IBCs, 2 IBCs, one being the parent, and that IBC could be mainly, the subsidiary could be mainly just to collect funds for a pornography platform. Then it pays dividends to the parent. The question then becomes whether that is a crime in the jurisdiction in which it operates. Because even though the company may be formed in one jurisdiction, when it comes to money laundering, it depends on where the crime is being committed. It may be an offense in that jurisdiction.
So you mean like, if a company was formed here, but they commit a crime that's just say in Asia, like one of these?
Yes. So whenever you find out what is the purpose of an account and where they are going to do business, you have to ensure that you're not breaking any laws in that jurisdiction. Because don't forget, now you'll be receiving the funds.
The thing is, Ms. Archer, no one coming to open an account will say to you, by the way, I'm in the business of child pornography.
No, they won't.
I mean, you can do enhanced due diligence as best you can. I think what it is incumbent upon us to then have in writing. I mean, for us, we send out forms to the client, and that client in their own handwriting and well, not so much in their own handwriting, but they fill the form to say what is their source of income, source of wealth, what is their business, and what is it that they want the IBC for, what they will be doing, what is their background. It is upon them to then give us bank and character references, and incumbent upon us then to do a world check. But you know what? You can dig as much as you want to. There's only so much that you will see.
Yes, and so that's why you should always have a system that does a sweep every night. You know what I mean by sweep? It goes through the system and see if there's any adverse media on that company or that BO or that director or the person with the power of attorney. And it tells you whether there's any adverse comment out there on that entity or that person or any one of those persons. You have to have a sweep because of the nature of the business that we are in. You need to have that. No one has the time every day to say, okay, account number 1, so-and-so company. Okay, these are the directors. Let me key them in one at a time. Let me see if there's anything on the internet. No, you need technology for that. So they always say that persons use these IBCs just to move money around. And sometimes the reason which they gave you or the purpose is not what they're actually doing. So until there is a suspicion somewhere around the world, you will have no idea. You will actually believe what you see on paper. And sometimes they may be doing transaction on behalf of someone else, which you would not know.
Agreed.
So you really have to spend time to know your customer. Make sure your information is up to date and know the nature of the business that they are in. And also know the common red flags you look for, such as intercompany loans, invoices that don't make any sense, transactions don't match with what they said they were going to do. The nature of their business has changed rapidly. Those are key things that you look at in order to make a decision as to whether or not an STR needs to be filed. Let me ask you a question. What do you think the impact of COVID-19 has been on money laundering?
It should have slowed it down, I would think.
No, I think it would enhance it.
I think it went up.
You think so? Money laundering?
Yeah.
Yeah, because everything was done. I could, in terms of where I work,
internet,
we relaxed a lot of what we did to accommodate the pandemic, and so we relaxed a lot of our standards just for that. But you could even see with the banks, you allowed larger withdrawals from the ATM and stuff like that. They did a lot of relaxations just to accommodate the pandemic, to me.
I agree. For me, my flag stayed up. So I said no to quite a number of transactions.
And we had an increased number in transactions. So I think transactions they were more frequent.
Right. So I'm looking at a report from the Asia Pacific Rim. And they reported that the majority of their illicit activity associated with COVID-19 relates to proceeds generating offenses such as financial fraud and exploitation scams with criminals attempting to profit from the pandemic through fundraising for fraudulent charities. Wow. And we had a lot of scams last year. They say that they also reported that they had serious and organized crime groups targeted new government pandemic response programs. And they say this included cyber criminals fraudulently claiming government benefits by stealing personal and business identity information or directly targeting businesses and individuals receiving support from pandemic response programs.
My goodness.
They had a significant increase in online fraud scams, with criminals posing as manufacturers and distributors of essential COVID-19 materials, such as personal protective equipment and testing kits and various pharmaceutical products. And these materials are actually counterfeit, or the materials are never received by the customer. So it has increased. So they say the FATF has highlighted other potential money laundering, terrorist financing risks emerging from the COVID-19 pandemic. Criminals may find ways to bypass customer due diligence measures by exploiting temporary challenges in internal controls caused by remote working situations in order to conceal and launder funds. Remember, the majority of people are still working from home. Criminals may exploit weak information technology systems to gain access to customer contact and transaction information, which is then used in targeting phishing scams with the criminals posing as the compromised business. And we had that here in the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm.
More individuals move money out of the banking system due to financial instability. It may lead to an increased use of the unregulated financial sector. Criminals may seek to invest money in real estate or troubled businesses to generate cash and hide illegitimate proceeds. International financial assistance may be misappropriated by corrupt officials or transferred to other jurisdictions, particularly in jurisdictions with weak AML CFT controls and poor accountability and transparency measures. So let me give you an example. Mr. Zhang falsely claimed to be the owner of S Company, which sold PPE, That's COVID material, such as masks for medical use. After downloading random pictures of factory production lines from the internet, he posted these pictures on social networking platforms to create the false impression that S Company was capable of manufacturing medical masks in massive quantities and was able to ship those masks to China. Consequently, many customers placed orders with S Company during the COVID-19 pandemic.
He shipped the masks to Canada, to China?
That's what
not
he
the
said
other
he
way
would
around?
Do. No, not the other way around.
That right there's a red flag.
You're right. So consequently, many customers placed orders with S Company during the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Zine claimed he would provide the customers with a bill of lading number so they could track the shipping progress. The customer would then assume the transaction was legitimate and transfer monies to S Company. These things actually happened. Actually happened.
People without a heart.
Listen to this one. Mr. A is the owner of a clinic who received an unsolicited email from Mr. B, claiming to be a surgical mask and personal medical protective equipment supplier from jurisdiction X. In early February 2020, Mr. A placed an order for PPE and transferred a total of 20 million Hong Kong dollars, which is 2.5 in US, to 14 overseas bank accounts in 7 jurisdictions. That was a red flag right there. Mr. A made a police report when he was unable to get in touch with Mr. B. The Hong Kong police force promptly liaised with banks via Interpol and withheld over 16 million Hong Kong dollars from the accounts. The investigation is ongoing.
Wow.
So you can see a lot of scams have been done for COVID-19. A lot.
That is so sad.
So a bank manager received a call from his client who said that he had received a request for money from his daughter who was studying abroad. His daughter claimed to be infected with COVID-19 and asked her father to transfer 100,000 RMB, what it is, whatever currency that is. It's in China.
Rubles?
No, RMB.
Can you convert that?
Yeah, 14,000 US dollars.
Because she have COVID?
Yeah, for medical treatment directly on her online social media account. The bank manager asked his client for further details and established the client had not spoken to his daughter via phone to confirm she had actually sent the message. The bank manager asked his client to verify the authenticity of the information before making a payment. After speaking with his daughter, the father learned his daughter's social media account had been hacked and she was not infected with COVID-19. No payment was made. So it has increased. The offenders offer job opportunities to job seekers via websites. Upon their registration on the website, the job seekers were required to fill in their personal data, including a bank account number. The offenders then used this information to commit identity theft by hacking into the victim's bank account or into their Facebook account, and then requesting money from the victim's friends. This fraudulent activity was committed by a network of offenders. The proceeds of crime, approximately $6,460, was transferred to their e-wallet. After the arrest of some of the offenders, proceeds of crime was approximately $3,390 was returned to the victims.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, there are a lot.
They innovative.
Listen to this one. There has been elevated attention from the public on the expenditure by government bodies to address the COVID-19 crisis. Internal investigations and an independent committee have been established in Papua New Guinea to respond to allegations that funds allocated to the COVID-19 response were expended without the appropriate procurement processes being followed, including through fraudulent payments. Allegations spread via social media, and there was also a complaint lodged with the police against the health minister who had allegedly issued instructions in favor of a fraudulent payment. So it ain't just the people on the scammers who creating false products. You even have the ministers who are accepting money on behalf of their country, stealing the funds from the country.
Well, okay.
So there has to be, and these examples I gave you is just from the Asia Pacific Rim.
Wow.
And it's been a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, that's stealing from the country and officials,
yes.
That be going on.
So there's really been a lot of increase over the internet. Notice that they're over the internet, except for the one with the minister. So again, it's that digital know your customer workshop. So, you know, you would have done customer due diligence in the past by looking at paper, looking at the person. But now you have to know how to do a digital know your customer.
Like the world checks and stuff.
Yes, everybody is working from home. So you have to be able to give yourself that level of comfort that you are dealing with the person who they purport to be. So that's a different type of training that your MLRO now have to give.
Yeah,
how do you get that comfort?
I think there's some things that are old-fashioned that should remain the same. For instance, the call back to the client to verify.
Yeah, I agree. But remember now, if they are a scamster, they would have already, I forget the word.
Anticipated your call back?
When you call, the call is routed to them. So you have to know that person's voice.
Yeah. Well, so I'll tell you, when I first started in the field and doing the callbacks, I literally pulled the file and asked certain questions. Now I'm familiar with my clients. And I am even at the point now where we WhatsApp message. But if it was a new client, then I'd have to pull the file and ask certain questions. I need to be comfortable because I tell my boss all the time, my 2 cents y'all give me at the end of each month cannot afford to pay back 3 and I only have 2 cents.
I agree. So that's our class today on money laundering. I hope I gave you all a lot of food for thought. I hope.
Yes, ma'am. I have one problem. I have a problem with the fact, I don't know if anybody else said this earlier, but please, ma'am, I cannot receive homework at 9 o'clock the morning of the homework. And I don't know how many others in here are maybe they don't work, but I'm sure 90% of us work.
I think you missed the beginning of the class.
No, but I said that I'm sure it was said earlier, but I'm just making my point known.
It was.
Thank you, ma'am.
It was. I'm trying to finish your capstone. I just have another question to put in it, so you'll get that this week. Okay. Start to work on. Okay. So any questions? Everybody was kind of quiet, except for Marquita and Salisa. I hear nothing from Cameron for the last 2 hours.
I promise you I will go quiet the next class.
No. Let me give the rest of the students a hint.
I was talking too.
Yeah, you were talking too.
I spoke as well.
Yes, you did. I had a class during COVID, and I had 10 students, but only 2 students were talking. Like going through and asking for the examples, things begin to stick in your head. So when you write your exam, because you participated, things will come to you. And at the end of the day, when they wrote the exam, they really had difficulties because they didn't participate in that exchange. And so they didn't have anything to grab onto to expand their answers. So for those who were quiet, they may not have been prepared, but for next class, try to read ahead of time and be prepared to ask questions. Because that's the only way you learn and you'll have something to draw on when you write the exam.
Man.
Okay? All right. So I'll see you all.
Think about your email address.
cmarcher_uwi@yahoo.com.
cmarcher_ sorry, what?
uwi@yahoo.com. So what I will do is when I finish with the capstone, I will send it to you directly and I'll copy Miguel.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Make sure you get it. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, good night.
Okay, so good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Night.